Welcome to Synchronicity. Before the show gets started, I wanted to take a second to talk about my friends from Ned. CBD, full spectrum hemp oil. Listen, it's magic potions. It's not that hard to understand that you have an endocannabinoid system inside of your body that reacts to the cannabis plant, of which hemp is a variety of, the male one. Go and get this stuff. It's fucking amazing. Go to helloned.com, use the code SYNC, S-Y-N-C at checkout, and get 15% off your order. I like the full spectrum hemp stuff. There's the body butter stuff. You can use it for things, if you know what I mean, in the bedroom. There's a lot of stuff there. Go check it out. Go tell them Noah sent you. Go hit them up and be like, Noah told me to do this, because they like that when that happens. Once again, that's helloned.com. Use the code SYNC, S-Y-N-C at checkout, and get 15% off your order. Okay, here we go. Welcome to Synchronicity. Wait till you hear the vocals that go on that one. I like them. I hear them. I made them. Refining, addressing, optimizing, harmonizing. That's the process of music making. You are music. You are songs. You are rhythms. You are tempo. This is a very weird way to start this episode. My guest this week is Maggie Hazen. I met Maggie through our mutual friend Zev, who has been on this podcast. What a great guy Zev is. Maggie is a professor at Bard College. Bard College is 15 minutes away, maybe less from where I live. My whole family went there. My mom, my dad, my aunt, my sister. I did not go there. I went to a music college. I'm the black sheep. But I love Bard College. It's a mystical, weirdo, psychedelic enclave in the middle of the Hudson Valley, kind of like my house. So I fucking love it. And I was asked by Maggie to be a guest lecturer on podcasting. And so I did that last week, and I basically went in there and rambled for an hour and a half. Who knows? Those poor kids, those poor students trying to get higher education. I'm rambling about tarot and podcasting and the universe and how they're God and all of these things. But they seem to respond well. I mean, if there's a place for that, it's Bard. So that was pretty cool. I had a great time. Maggie, though, oh boy, Maggie's so interesting. You will hear about her background in this episode. I'm not going to give it away. You will hear about her journey. You will hear about her faith, her belief, what her conception of God is, what God is in her mind. And she's just a very interesting person who I immediately connected with. She's also one of the first people who added me back on CoStar. Like I think like 6 or 7 months ago, I went and added like all of my friends. And I'm pretty sure many of them, because most of the people who, at least at that time, who are on CoStar were women. And so I knew that like some were probably going to interpret this as me like trying to hit on them, but it wasn't. I was just like, holy shit, astrology is interesting. I want to compare charts with everyone. But Maggie added me back immediately, and I got to you get to look at your charts and see what works. It's so cool. I love it. But she's just a wonderful person. She has an art background. That's what she teaches at Bard in the art department, the art studio. It's cool, man. Art is the best. And we've had some lovely conversations about the nature of reality, culture, creativity. But this episode predominantly is about God and healing and faith and miracles. And I love it for that reason. The first 20 minutes, 15 minutes of this, her mic wasn't on. So you'll hear me allude to the fact that, we'll go back and get it. It didn't sound the way I wanted it to sound. So we were just going to pick it up after 15 minutes. Oh, well, I've been having a fair amount of technical difficulties, not doing anything differently, things not recording, things recording partially. There's something going on. I'm working through it. I'm imagining a different reality. But that's been going on. Luckily, I have a stash of guest episodes and so many more planned that there's really no worries. Like, we're always going to have guests. Always. Always, always, always. And forever. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. I mentioned it last episode. Thank you to everyone who has gotten in touch about the astrology readings. I'm learning so much. It's been incredible. Everything I wanted to learn, I am learning. I'm looking forward to being able to offer this as a service in the future, but let me get my chops up. Also, I figured out a cool thing to do. Like, I was listening to this great new podcast. What's it called? My friend Sean sent it to me. Sean's going to be on the podcast soon. Not Sean from Very Ape. My friend Sean Cohn. He sent me this podcast to listen to on Decans, which is how you relate the tarot to astrology. And I'm just trying to find it right now. What is it? Oh, yeah. Fortune's Wheelhouse with Susie Chang and Mel Meline. Oh, man. So good. So good. So good. So I'm learning a lot from that. But one thing that they do is Susie has written books. And so she'll do these giveaways and she'll relate them to cards and stuff. So that's what I'm going to start doing. And this is the first one. I just decided it right now. If you want a free tarot reading, you can go look at the prices. They're not super cheap. But if you want a free one, all you have to do is this. Go follow me on Instagram. I will look. I will randomly pick someone. You have to ping me. You have to message me, DM me and say, hey, I want a free reading. And then you're drawn in. I promise I will do this fairly through a random number generator or something like that. I will pick a winner. We'll do a reading. That's it. I'm going to offer these at least once a month. It's just my way of giving back because people have paid me for this service and it's allowed me to learn it. It's just great. I want to just keep feeding the system, if that makes sense. Makes everyone happy, including myself. So we're going to do that. Thank you to everyone who's rated and reviewed this podcast. It's great. 5 stars, appreciated. 1 star, not so much. Don't do it. You want to go on and flame me, which, with more exposure comes more flames, but I like it. I like the fucking fire. So do what you will. All right. That's it. Go check out Maggie. Maggie, I don't know. Do you have a website? If Maggie has a website, it will be posted in this episode. I will get it from her. I recorded before I asked her. She's the coolest. Come visit us in the Hudson Valley. There's cool shit going up on here. And just remember, there's a lot. There's a whole wide world of lots of stuff, but you're in control of it. And if that offends you, if that rubs you the wrong way, the fact that you actually exercise ultimate control over your life, keep on digging, keep on plowing, keep on doing what you got to do until that makes sense. Because then it's a lot more. It's liberating. It's not like it's comfortable all the time, but it's liberating. And isn't that what we're looking for? Okay. I don't think I have anything else. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. Tune in to the godlike frequency that is Maggie Hazen. Here she is. I didn't have a way to end that. Oh my God. I went to the very end. I usually say without further ado, and then I just said, here she is. Without further ado, here's Maggie Hazen. We're talking about God, so the mic is on.
The mic is on. The God mic.
It is the God mic. It is the God mic. We'll go over it.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point in your life, no matter like who you are or where you live in this world, you have thought about the concept of God in some degree. Right?
Without a doubt.
Because you just look outside and you go, how the heck did that get there?
Yeah. Or even if you don't have the thought, someone else has the thought of what God is, and you have a relationship to that idea.
Exactly.
So that's your point.
And everybody has certain degrees of a relationship. Whether, like, there's some people who choose to have a relationship with God. There's some people who maybe believe in God and decide that God's just doing their thing.
Just for them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or the idea of like a God who's there but not intervening in our lives. There's been passive. Yeah.
Onlooker.
Mm-hmm.
Objective witness.
Yeah. Or, there's a lot of atheists who believe that there is no God and that all of this is science.
What a ballsy stance. What a ballsy stance, the atheists.
I know. Like, the fact that, like, we have consciousness and that we're on a planet that's, like, if it's, flung out of orbit even a hair, all of civilization will die.
Or, like, an orange. Look at a fucking orange. What the fuck is an orange? This perfect orb of deliciousness that you peel off and perfect things. Right. Like, I know this is like a hippie thought and a stoner thought, but like, what the fuck? And like, continue.
Yeah. No, and I think I think what God is mystery. Like the biggest mystery of all that we're not supposed to figure out while we're alive.
Can you crack the mystery is the question.
I think that's what humans have been trying to do ever since the concept of human or was created or has existed.
Would you believe in something where you could empirically prove to yourself that you are God? There is also unity consciousness and a higher level of being, that we are not as physical beings, but that we are also God.
No, I believe we can become like God, but we can never be God.
What if you could empirically prove to yourself that you were? I'm not saying leap of faith.
I don't know how I'm sure there's arguments for it. I don't know them.
Not an argument. An argument would be, just to be clear, people could have said to me for infinity time that I'm God and never convinced me, because it sounds like fucking nonsense. Mm-hmm. Just to be clear, It sounds like some totally unachievable state of being as a human that to even presume to do something would be preposterous. Yeah. So I just want to be clear that we're not differing in terms of that. However, if you have the direct experience of that, that's different, because that isn't someone telling you something. So that's why when I talk about this stuff, I am quite careful about the terminology I use, just because not that I'm that afraid of it, I don't want to seem like a lunatic, but B, I don't want to tread on someone's idea of a concept that's quite powerful.
Right.
So when I say empirically, what I mean is that you use a technique and prove to yourself essentially that this I am, this sense of who you are in your head, right? That is the God of the Old and New Testament. Mm-hmm. That is the Jesus. You're also still you, which is when the I and I, we spoke about this, the big I and the little I in Rastafarianism, still a reality. And then from there, if that's clicked in and stabilized, not as a preposterous concept, but as a direct experience, that flips reality upside down. Now, a major resistance point I've noticed in this is, just to be clear, if one is God, all of the responsibility in your world is yours.
Exactly.
Literally, not kind of. It's
That's
not.
What my question to you is, why would you want to be God?
Oh, well, here's my conception of what this reality is. I don't know if this is found in any scripture, but I think scripture is like an esoteric symbolism of what an experience is when we go through all these states. But I've spoken about this briefly, but here's what I think essentially people are, humans. Mm-hmm. So we have God. We have this omnipotent being before time, before space, before anything. Mm-hmm. And this being is like, this is great. I love being omnipotent. I love having everything and being everything, but I'm a little bored. I want to do something. Mm-hmm. So let me start creating some stuff. So it starts creating trees and seas and continents, and then plants and bugs and animals and all of these things.
It's like the flannel board in Bible school.
Exactly. I don't know what that is, but it sounds...
It's just a green little board, and then your little cutouts you stick on it.
That's cool.
All of the birds, and then there's Jesus.
This is my
you have
board.
A little flannel board kind of.
I do.
Tape and paper.
Tape and paper and pictures of Renee Magritte and Vajra Yogini and Tarot and Sarah.
And then you got some Hilma up there.
I love Hilma. That exhibit, man.
Yeah, changed me. I felt it.
Okay, so now we're getting closer here. So there's this being, and then he or she.
Yeah, I say they because God is outside of
gender. We see that now expressing in our reality, the spectrum, right? Yeah. It's revealing itself. It's amazing. Yeah. It's incredible. So there's this being, and they go, all right, I'm going to create something special now. Here's these humans. And these humans are delightful to this being. Just like, oh my God, like this is, but, they're not real. They're like dolls, like if you're playing with a Ninja Turtle or whatever it is when you're younger, like it's super fun and your imagination can be incredible, but you still know you're picking up the doll on some level, right? That's always there. So that's not really a living being, right? So God goes, all right, I guess I know what I have to do. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill myself and die into all of these human beings. And the game I'm going to play is, because I am still God, is I'll wake myself up in every human being so I remember who I am, so I can unfold this amazing plan to show people that, like, holy shit, this is the game. So that's great. That's an amazing narrative. The way, again, I think we can perceive this in any scriptural, not just Western and Christian mysticism or Talmudic or any of this stuff, but from all of the mystery traditions and shamanic and indigenous cultures, they're all imaginal acts of the same kind of story of awakening, which we see reflected in our environment as well, with the sun and the moon and all of these things. Like, it's not like it's like some crazy
It's like a
thing.
restart every day. There's a new awakening every day, right? A refreshing.
That is specifically what's happening.
Or like a video game. You get to die and come back alive again, and you get to restart and try the level one more time.
So I tweeted about this today, about the video game analogy or the allegory. And
I did a piece about that, actually.
Yeah, it's amazing. This is a very big concept that I think is relatable to a lot of people because of video game culture and just how it's permeated mainstream culture. So even people who, like, when I was a kid and playing Mario Brothers, like, my parents were aware of it, but they didn't give a shit, really. They're just like, no, it's weird. Why is he playing video games all the time? Like, maybe this is bad for him. The video game allegory works, like, from an RPG sense. However, what I try to communicate as much as possible is that there are infinite games, there are infinite consoles. The skill isn't to get amazing at just one game on one good console. It's to be able to play any game and play it effectively and the best way possible. So again, what I think this implies and what's been a lived experience for me is, rather than saying, hey, I'm God, I'm Jesus Christ, in like some weird kind of ego trip, like delusion game, is just to say, okay, let's say I am God. Let's just go with this weird experiment. I'm not going to get struck down. I'm not going to fuck myself or other people over. If this is true, what would I do? With omnipotence, what would I do? And I think, as best as I can tell, if used lovingly, if that technique I gave is used lovingly, you just make your life internally the best it can be. That gets expressed outwardly. Thereby, everyone else's life gets the best it can possibly be. And then we start making this physical reality a reflection of everyone's internal state, which is balanced, harmonious. Right. The state you were referring to as stabilizing the answered prayer, letting it unfold. Right. So that's
kind of talking about heaven, the concept of heaven.
That would be it, Maggie.
Yeah. Yes.
That would be it.
That harmonious living together. We're all naked again. Nothing. That all of our desires don't turn negative in some way if you have too much of it or whatnot. Yeah. Right. The place of like full harmony, utopia. I mean, that's what we've been after.
What do you think? Do you think we're moving to that in this world, or do you think that's a state that's outside of this world?
I think that's a state that's outside of this world.
Ooh. Outside in what sense? You mean after death?
But yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've grown up to believe and have, settled with that as being something that, like, I believe is true.
Do you think you have experienced the feeling of heaven on earth at any point during your life, even if just a glimpse?
Oh yeah. The window,
the glimpse that maybe the
it's like the window. That's what I actually titled my thesis in grad school, the already but not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
window,
but not yet.
like, and I see like the new window is the TV monitor, right? Where we're watching videos of, there's so many like apocalyptic and like utopian movies out now, like in the sci-fi genre. It's like incredible, like multiplied in the past like 10 years.
It has to be.
I think there's like a consciousness around us everywhere of like some sort of impending restart.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Whoa, I got chills.
Yeah, you did. You should, because that is 100% accurate.
And I think what's happening, like, is we're getting more and more glimpses into what the possibilities of heaven would be like.
Oh, I totally agree.
But right, like, there are certain things that can't go into heaven, right?
Yeah, that's true. Do you know what those things are?
Well, the bad stuff.
Yes. Things like fear, doubt, anxiety, depression,
exactly,
worry.
And so when I have experienced moments of heaven is when I'm praying for people. When I'm in a group setting where our focus is really on edification of one another, uplifting one another.
Yes.
And then our focus is also like on whatever God is, right? This mystery beyond imagination, this God that is like love.
Yes. We're agreeing on all of this.
God is mystery, God is love. Those are my two big
totally
things, But there's also parts of stuff that I grew up with that's like God is wrath, and I'm like, oh,
God is wrath.
How do we talk? Anyways, that's another one.
No, wrath
that's
is important.
Well, I guess maybe that's the yang, or yin and the yang
so,
sort of thing, right? So like in all of, anyways, so like when I'm praying for people, right, in a group, like that's when I've experienced like this moment of heaven. My body sometimes gets really hot, and my hand will touch somebody.
You'll feel it.
I'll feel it, and I'll get a prophetic vision of their life, and they'll be like, "That's so true."
An internal vision.
Yeah.
What maybe one might call imagination.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I think we're talking about similar stuff, just have very different terminology.
I think we're talking about the exact same thing. I think the only difference that I can see right now, and I'm so happy that we disagree on this, because I'm sure a lot of people think about this, is that I'm being kind of a ballsy ass motherfucker and saying, hey, I believe that I'm God, and I believe everyone is God, and I believe everyone has that power, and that this mystery, while I do agree there are facets that are unknowable to our conscious mind, on an unconscious level are directly experienced.
Yeah.
And this reset that you're referring to happens when we go to sleep and reset into this unconscious, what I now refer to as higher dimensional worlds.
Yeah.
Now, here's why I brought up the heaven thing, is what you're describing is what I've experienced for most of my life. I get chills. I get the flashes. I've seen miracles. I've been the vessel for miracles at time.
Yeah. It's a spiritual giftedness.
It's a spiritual
prophetic.
Gift. Yeah. And a prophetic, you get the visions. And I didn't know what these were. I've heard the voice, all these things, you know, which could be diagnosed as mental illness in some people if they didn't have the support system or inner stability to hone it. But what you're describing sounds like what I believe it's Japanese Buddhists call Satori and Kensho. Kensho is glimpses of the real reality, glimpses of true enlightenment, glimpses of heaven. Satori is instant enlightenment, and you stay there. And you do not come back down unless it's a choice, because you need to operate on that plane for whatever it is.
And that's like what's set out to be sort of achieved in some way.
Yes. Maggie, here is my prediction. It's a pretty bold one. This transition that you feel coming up, that I've spoken about now, with not by me bringing it up, but by them feeling it and then talking about it with me, is imminent.
Right.
It is like months away at this point. We're recording in September 2019. The awareness of how this world comes into being in reality is going to be experienced by a relatively large percentage of the population. This technique that I referred to earlier is always taking place. Our assumptions and our beliefs create our individual reality. When we think of other people, we acknowledge that in a dualistic world, they are other people. But on another level, everyone is you pushed out. So every relationship is an opportunity for you to learn something about yourself. You are setting it up to learn something. So is the other person. It's this wonderful interplay of things. And that kind of unity consciousness, doing this dance of pretending to be duality, I think is propelled and upheld by what you're referring to, which is love, mystery, God. And that dwells within. That's kind of what I have directly experienced. I think the road to realization for this, from my own experience, I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but I think it is that you use those desires. You use those things that are served up to prove this to yourself. You build the ladder of faith. That's been my direct experience lately. Since I stopped believing in an external God in any way, what I refer to now as the golden calf, any external God. And it's not that I don't believe in Buddha, Krishna, Old Testament God, even Jesus as a historical figure. I actually do. But I recognize my internal state of consciousness is the proof of, like, that's what creates these things and makes them real. The signs that follow, the synchronicities that follow, the felt feeling that you're on the right track, that sense of equanimity, that sense of balance that you're referring to, which to me is essentially, if you need a compass during all of these inner travels, that's it. That's the thing, because you can get to these states of realization. These are the crazy people on the streets. These are the people who have breakdowns. You can get to these same realizations, but if you don't have that inner stability, you donezo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen that in your organizations too.
Totally.
Like, so what has been kind of the foundation stone of your conception of how this world works, and then what God is, or what the generative force is? I'm curious, because you're teaching at Bard, right? You know, I love your beliefs, and I love your kind of your faith and love in God, but I'm curious, like, how did you get to your current kind of metaphysical conception of where you're at? What led there?
Oh my God, I feel like that's such a huge
It is huge. What do you think this podcast is? Maggie, what do you think this is?
I mean, how did I get to okay, can you rephrase it?
Yeah, so like the metaphysical reality, like what you believe. You believe that God is some operative metaphysical love mystery that we have a relationship with, that if used lovingly and ethically delivers essentially anything we feel in our heart. Is that correct?
It doesn't necessarily always deliver anything that's in our heart.
True. How would you describe the process?
Of God, of believing in God. Essentially, how would I describe the process? I think there's I think it's relative to my own story and my own life.
Your direct experience.
Right. And
what does that look like? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a family with a father who was a theologian, I guess. But also more into what is called apologetics, like defending the faith. Kind of, what is the evidence that proves Christianity is real outside of a lot of what people would call like the spiritual,
spectrum, or
the in concrete, he's sort of a man of the facts. And he actually came to his faith by himself. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it.
Yeah. And so I kind of grew up with it, and I, grew up going into like, Sunday school where you're learning the stories, right? And I think this is where like Joseph Campbell and a lot of this is like, it's all about stories, and like the Epic of Gilgamesh is similar to like the same creation myth. I do believe that Genesis is sort of like this myth, because you could look at the text from all of those from that time period.
Yes.
Carbon date the, whatever it was written on, and they're all kind of from a relatively similar time period where the creation stories are all very intertwined with each other.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if I believe in a literal, like in the Christian Old Testament, right? It's like the Bible, it's literal 7 days, there's all of ththese like debates, like, was it 7 days that God created? Or anyways, to me, it's irrelevant. Like,
cool.
So I kind of grew up on, like, I guess you would call like a normal Christian, like church path. And I even went to a conservative undergrad called the Bible Institute of Los Angeles. And I had always like sort of like questioned different pathways or whatnot, but like all my friends were at church. I had a lot of, it became cultural, right?
Yeah, it's
like
community.
It was a community thing, and it became like this cultural thing, and you believe whatever your culture agrees upon is valuable, right?
Of course.
So like, I think for me, I started to question a little bit of this aspect of faith, where people around me who had also grown up in a church context and environment believed certain like truths about the Bible, like love your neighbor. We would study the Bible. There's a lot of great like spiritual teaching that like has really helped my life. It balanced me.
There's good stuff in there.
But when it came to the stuff that was like, Jesus raised this dead person, or they were all praying in tongues, or like the loaves and the fishes were miraculously divided, right? And like there was enough for everybody.
Yes.
That sort of stuff. That's where a lot of like people in my church community that I grew up with didn't fully understand. And I was like, okay, well, if I believe in this God that's like big and huge and can do incredible things that are beyond my understanding.
Yeah.
And if I have faith, like God can do that,
yes.
right?
Yes. That was your perspective, right?
Yeah.
100% agree.
But it was sort of like ignored in the Bible, like in Bible school. Like we didn't talk about like that. Like we believe that that's what happened at the time, but it doesn't happen now.
It doesn't happen now. Oh, no, it's just some historical accounts. That's in the past.
And then I encountered the charismatic church, which is like, there's this whole history of the charismatic section of Christianity. Like, in Christianity, there's so many different sects, right?
Of course.
It's insane amount, right?
It's a hugely profound and vast and essentially endless spiritual well. So,
yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And like in Southern California in particular, I guess if we're speaking about wells, there's a huge well of the Holy Spirit is what we call it. Because, there's God, Jesus, and then the Holy Spirit, which is the mystery force, right? That like
yes.
does all of God's bidding, essentially.
Yes. I call that feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And like in Southern California, like John Wimber's church in the Vineyard, there was this what we would call like the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, where signs and wonders were being seen. And then we feel like in the land in Southern California, there's a huge well of like something, prophetic force there.
Is.
And I went to a Korean church.
So cool.
Just randomly when I was in college with a group of friends, because I got word on the street that there was some spirit stuff happening. I was like, I don't even know what this is, but I'm curious, and I have believed it my whole life, so I'm going to give it a shot. So there was this prophetess. Her name was Elsabe or something. I can't remember her name, but she was from South Africa, and she was at this Korean church.
She have a cool accent.
Yeah,
cool.
She did.
That's the best. Listen, don't trust any. What was he? A prophetess?
I guess. Yeah.
Don't trust any prophetess unless they have an accent.
Exactly.
That's a hard and fast rule. Yeah.
And granted, my experience growing up in the church was like, what? Like, this is the weird part of it that we never talked about because it was weird.
Which I would just like to say, is the heart of Christianity. It is supposed to literally, like, you're not supposed to just believe in little dinky things.
Exactly.
Like, Jesus
faith the small as a mustard seed can hurl a mountain into a sea.
So do you know the story? Okay. So that's a famous thing. I think it's in this book I'll give you. And Neville Goddard talks about it. Is the old woman who's told that, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move this mountain. And she goes, all right. So she goes to sleep at night, wakes up in the morning, looks out the window, and the mountain's there. And she goes, see, I told you. That story is meant to emphasize that she did not have the faith of a mustard seed at all, because if you use the technique, if you prayed like you prayed, and you have that faith, that mountain's fucking gone. And you can look at it as a literal mountain if you want to. Yeah. My general contention now is, do not look at anything literally. Look at everything symbolically. Look at everything metaphorically. Everything, and you start to understand what's being said. You really start to,
the metaphorical understandings are like really helpful.
Very.
But back to my story. So I went to this this service. I guess it was like Wednesday night or something.
Yeah.
And Elsabe was getting a lot of these like words, or whatever. So I was in the room, like I was a minority in the room, which was it was amazing because I feel like I get a whole different cultural experience.
Right.
On top of like, because there's like white Christianity essentially, like, which is like this whole a huge part of the world. And then like, but there's so many different, I've been to Africa and seen like all
totally
sorts of
different.
It's totally different, right? Same God, same concept of God, same text, but totally different experience.
Yes.
So Elsabe was like giving a message. I don't even remember what the message was. And then at the end, she was like, if you feel this call or this pull or this like tug, that like this word that ever I gave to you resounded, and you feel called and anointed and you have a destiny that's like supposed like that you have a prophetic call on your life, come forward. And I was like, as she was saying this out of body experience, like I'm in tears.
Yes.
Like I have chills all over my body. I'm like,
up and down.
What is going
Goosebumps
on?
everywhere.
I went forward, and there was a few other people in the room. And she started like praying over me, like put her hand on my forehead, and I did the crazy Christian charismatic thing, like fell over.
Yeah.
Like blacked out.
Yeah.
And like I was like, I go back to the experience all the time. I'm like,
what the fuck?
I'm like a rational person in college, like I don't feel insane in any way.
You're not. I've known you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say.
I teach college.
You're good.
Anyways, so like I'm on the ground and like I wake up and I'm like crying and I feel like this renewal. And then they're like, I remember another voice, somebody praying over me, another woman in the room. And she was really prophetic. And she was like, you're a golden eagle that's supposed to go to heaven and receive golden feathers of prophecy to deliver to nations. And I was like, that's cool. And at the time I was like, I have this mantle now.
Yeah.
I have this anointing is what we call it.
Yeah.
To do something. And then I was able to start praying in tongues.
Nice.
It was weird. I remember sitting in the corner with my friend who had taken me there, and she was also like, what's happening? And you look in the room and everybody's crying.
What does it feel like when you're praying in tongues? What's going on internally? I'm not as concerned as the external.
Right.
I'm going to disregard that, not because I think it's weird. I think it's fucking awesome. What does it internally feel like when you're praying in tongues?
It feels like like there's a particular thing that I'm focused on.
What is it? Imaginally, like it's an image or feeling?
It's a feeling.
Feeling.
It's like there's like this, like, you know, like if I'm praying on your behalf, like if I'm praying for you, Noah, and like I want to see something awesome happen in your life, I'm going to be like God in my head, and then probably start praying in English over you, and then start praying in tongues or like under my breath, and then I'll be like, you know, just it would be like in some way like channeling whatever God's desire would be for you.
Ooh, be careful if you do it for me. It's going to feel really good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. That's fucking amazing. The way I describe what I think you're doing, and I want to hear more specifically about what you're doing, but just so I can pause here, because some people might not understand what you're talking about here is you're locking onto a feeling, right?
Yeah.
You're praying for me. You want God's plan to be delivered to me.
It's
That's
like
it. You don't have to know.
Yeah.
You don't, just to be clear, and this is important for everyone again, the means, you're not thinking about the means, are you? It's the feeling.
Yeah.
You may get a flash or a vision of something, sure, but the means are less important than the feeling of God's plan being delivered.
Yeah. It's like I know something's coming for
you know it. You assume it. You appropriate the state of course.
And then I
it's
feel
coming.
it like so strongly.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's essentially all of these techniques I'm talking about constantly. That's it. That's the whole technique.
Yeah.
It's all the other stuff is just window dressing to get people to accept that what you say, praying in tongues. That's it. That literally creates everything all of the time. If you add the visual or audio component and drill down, I
the
want
visuals. I get a lot of pictures for people.
You'll get pictures.
Pictures and dreams. Yeah.
I want you to try something if you're open to it when you're doing this in the future for yourself or other people. Direct the picture. Conceive of the picture and image first before, and then lock into the feeling. Now, if you do that, I've found when someone asks me for something, if it's so improbable and I can feel that they know it's improbable, I cannot lock onto that the same way. There's sometimes you can overcome it if you want, but I do feel that like sometimes people want to test this in like some magic power type of way. So they'll ask for like billions of dollars and like you can tell that's not their real desire. Right. So I think there is something to be said about your ability to naturally summon forth, just you let it go. Right. It's not you. Yeah. You just let God work through you. We're talking about the exact same thing.
We totally are. And I believe that like anybody can talk to God. Like
anyone can.
You don't have to be like a Christian or like in any sort of faith tradition. I agree. That's the cool thing about God, right? Like this force that's like really wants a relationship.
Yeah.
It wants you to talk to it. And
it's the best.
Yeah. It's so cool. And I believe that anybody can know God and experience God. And it's like probably one of the most joyous things I've ever experienced in my entire life. And also when you meet somebody else who believes the same thing.
It's, as far as I can tell, one of the key pillars of being a human being is recognizing and waking up to that, because it changes what is seen as kind of the Job initial conception of what the world is as just like things being thrown at you and like, what the fuck?
Right.
Why are you doing this?
And that's what kind of like what we talk about sometimes is like seasons.
Yes.
Right. Like there's, if you don't know who Job is like this man in the Old Testament who all of these terrible things happened to him.
Just
like lost
bad.
All of his kids, his land, his wife, and just, had nothing else, rags, but like the idea of like what I grew up believing is like, there's a lesson in that. Like there's something to be learned. But like, so sometimes there are moments in my life where I'm like the lights on, I'm like, I can hear God. And I'm like, I'm like overwhelmed with joy all the time and it feels great. And then there are times when I'm like in this season, which we call like the dark night of the soul, where you're just like, nothing seems to be like happening. I'm just alone.
You lost the contact, the existential,
like,
where did you go?
And you're like, I want it. Like, God, I want to hear you again. And like, you're like, I want to intercede. And like, I get it, but like, where are you?
Do you have any idea of why that happens? I have some ideas.
I don't know.
So I'm sure you've noticed that sometimes you consciously will or want something and then it doesn't happen. Everyone is somewhat familiar with this phenomenon in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of wanting something and thinking of it and feeling that you're missing it actually reinforces the state. It's a repellent to the thing you want consciously. But when you sift down into your talking in tongues, or you go to your unconscious, or you go to your imagination, the deepest aspects of you, which you hit every night in sleep, that's the opposite.
Right.
That is not summoning something towards you. It's creating it and allowing it to unfold.
Right.
I've found that for whether it's an emotionally painful, psychologically traumatic, or spiritually dark night of the soul type of experience, it's almost always related. This is why, again, it brings up our point of the slight disagreement is you will never have another dark night of the soul if you fully believe and experience God not as external ever. You don't lose it. It's what I call the stabilizing factor. It's the Jesus Christ moment. It's the moment of waking up and being like, Jesus Christ, holy shit.
What, you meaning like God is as external, or like, because I believe like God's in me.
He is.
Yeah.
God, he, she, they, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
I take it a step further and say, not only is God in me, I experience God in my own mind all of the time.
Yeah.
When it happened to me the first time, it was overwhelming. It like blew fuses and I couldn't communicate, and you seemed like a Looney Tune. The difference is this time I did it I got shot to the top of Space Mountain before. This happens, I think, with a lot of people who are diagnosed as bipolar or schizophrenic or some mental illness, is you get shot to the top of Space Mountain. You're like, what the fuck is going on? This is incredible, but what the fuck? And then you come crashing back down because you're like, I don't know how that happened.
Right.
The way I describe it this time is you get all your gear together, you get all your hiking equipment, you go, I'm going to climb that mountain. You go around the mountain, you go around it. There's icy parts, there's treacherous parts, there's all these scary things, but you're going up the mountain. You finally fucking get there. You know exactly how you got up there. Furthermore, you can go back down whenever you want. So if you need to communicate with someone and you don't want to just talk about Jesus Christ and unconditional love and all of these metaphysical things, you can just relate it to like physiologically and neurotransmitters and quantum physics and all these things, and speak in an intelligible way that people are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. My direct experience is that God lives within me, and this sense of I am in my head, I trust, I love because I love God. Yeah. And I know and trust myself to distinguish between an ego desire and a divine desire that's served up. And if you're having trouble distinguishing, pursue them and see what falls off and see what actually comes. Because then those are your real desires, and the other ones are maybe just little quick delusion trips that we take.
I also, going back to like why does the dark night of the soul happen, and sometimes you're on cloud 9. Yes. Right? Like I think what you described is like the mountain analogy, right? When you're sometimes on top of the mountain and you're like so close to God and you're like, nothing else, but then you come back down and you're like, I want to tell everybody, right?
You're the Messiah complex,
But then you're like stuck in that world for a long time, right? Like it's like stuck, it depends. And so whatever world or context that is, right? Like if I'm in a community that's also on cloud 9,
easy to communicate.
And like those are my friends. Those are everybody I'm with all the time. There's a place in Northern California called Bethel where that's sort of like the top of
everyone's
the
in the same wavelength.
Yeah,
they're tuned into the
they're
same
getting
frequency.
gold dust on their hands and they're worshiping God all the time. It's insane.
Yeah,
right. Like,
that sounds awesome, though.
But like, part of my call, I was in that for a while.
Which just sounds kind of awesome.
Yeah,
just to be clear,
it's kind of amazing. You should go to Bethel.
I kind of want to.
You should totally go.
Because it sounds like what I'm into.
Or it's there. And then like, God's like, okay, Maggie, you're also called to not always be on the mountain. You're supposed to bring that mountain to other people.
You're in prisons.
Yeah. I'm starting a whole educational project, art project inside of a women's correctional facility nearby.
So this is how I think, and
you can get into the dark night.
Yeah.
Because I think if you spend too much time there and you're not going back up.
Exactly.
Or going up back up or being in the community with people that understand you. It gets dark.
Right. Well, I think what happens to people is if you get too high up or too low, you get detached from the interconnectedness of the world. And it's easy to let's say you wake up to the fact that you're God, or, you just have this enlightenment and feel in flow all the time, or whatever it is. You can get a pull away from the circumstances and reality of this life. Oh, my imagination creates reality. This world isn't real. No, that's not true. even if this is a dream, we're here. You have to bear witness to things like prison populations, poverty, ecological impact. We don't want to get detached and be like, hey, you're God, and be like, I'm just going to have a yacht and fuck off and do nothing. Now, just to be clear, I want to be clear about what I'm talking about here. When I say God, I'm talking about a neutral, unconscious, impersonal, non-selective principle. We are the conscious, selective, personal principle. So when God or the unconscious hears something and it says, you know, I want so-and-so to be unhappy, or I just want a lot of money, I don't care about my happiness, delivered. It's not this like, the benevolence comes from our aspirations and intentions with all of these things. So part of that is recognizing the outside world and saying, hey, like there's shit going on. When I wake up to my true power, when I can start blessing people and delivering things and healing people, like I need to make sure I'm doing that for everyone around me. Like you start with yourself, you get 100% locked up, you're balanced, you're great, you're feeling fucking wonderful all of the time. You're sure that's how it really is. It's not a delusion. Then you go, all right, now what do we do? How do we start healing the outside world? Which again is just a reflection. If you believe everyone is God, you want to heal all aspects of God. So yeah, I do think that this is like, we're talking about the dark night of the soul. It tends to be when you get too far in one direction, too exalted with yourself, the limited version of yourself who's maybe using a spiritual power or something, or you get so disconnected from the spiritual high aspect of yourself that you're just totally in darkness and have no fucking idea what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you're either like Icarus and you're flying way too close to the sun.
Right. Icarus is exactly who I was thinking of when you said. Yeah.
Or you're like, what's the opposite? I guess like, when you're stuck so much in a place that's like a negative environment.
I call it Plato's cave.
Yeah.
That's the opposite to me. It's like you're in a cave and you don't even know you're in a cave and you can't understand how to get out of it because you're not even aware you're of. That's any psychological state you're stuck in.
And that's like fear. That's like, you don't want to get out of the cave because you don't know what's on the outside of that. Like,
of course.
Survival.
That's what Plato was
talking about. Cave is the safe
about.
Space.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting out there and taking a few risks, but sometimes you can take too many risks and like fly as high as you can. You're like, nothing can defeat me.
Fearlessness. Nothing can defeat me.
So maybe fear is like what we're talking about in some way.
It is. Fear is a thing that prevents people from realizing who they are because, again, the fear of the responsibility of being in complete control of everything you experience in this world is usually enough to prevent people from even entertaining that thought, let alone pursuing it.
Right.
If, however, you dare to fucking play with fire and want to be Prometheus and even knowing the myth of how it ends, do it. I think you'll find empirically and through direct experience that is the truth. And I think when we start thinking about fear, what comes up naturally for a lot of people is death and punishment and pain and retribution and horrible things. And I think what's helped me tremendously is rather than thinking of physical death, which is it's scary. I don't want to be physical. Psychically killing yourself, psychically killing limited versions of you that have fear and getting used to that feeling is very powerful. So when I start thinking about, death or playing with fire and Prometheus being tortured, I don't really think of it necessarily as like some horrible, be careful, watch out, don't play with fire thing. It's more like, you know what? The version of you that does play with fire is going to be fucking destroyed. Yeah.
I remember growing up that we would use, analogy like burn away anything that is, not of you, God,
like Michelangelo, pull it all away. Yeah. Pull it all away. Just reveal what's actually there. Just please. Yeah. That's how all this shit works. It's pretty out there. What are some other things that you've prayed for yourself or other people that you've seen? I'm sure, like, now I know who you are. Now I get it. Like, what are you doing out there in the world, Maggie?
I don't know.
You're doing stuff.
I'm doing stuff.
You must know it. You must know it. I mean, that's how it works. You have to know it on some level. You don't need to know the means, but the end is what you pray for.
Yeah. I mean, other crazy stuff. I mean, I haven't seen any like crazy like miracles, and I haven't been intentionally like going, God, I used to be kind of obsessed to be like, God, like show me the next miracle. Like, let me see. Well,
you're looking
happen.
for signs.
Yeah.
That's different though.
Yeah.
That's externally looking for signs. I think that's spoken about in one of somewhere in the New Testament is I think they're actually referred to as Jews, which again, everything is symbolically meant. And I believe Neville Goddard described Greeks are the ones who look for wisdom to follow. Jews are the ones who look for symbols. They're not, wisdom and symbols aren't explicitly said, but there's a passage in the New Testament that's referring to that. And I caution against looking for symbols and signs as confirmation, as opposed to having internal confirmation and then naturally allowing those things to unfold.
Right.
That to me is a big difference, because if you are constantly looking for confirmation, you may develop a relationship where you trip yourself up when it's not happening the time you thought it should have happened. Right. And I've experienced that a lot. And that is a real easy way to collapse.
You can get so caught up in like the sign, like everything becomes like a sign, right? Yeah. Like that like license plate, and then like that street sign. And, there's even like, sometimes like people are like reading into that. I've kind of done that as well.
It's because it's true. Let me break this down two ways. That is actually what's happening. Yeah. All of those, when I say this life is a symphony of synchronicities, I mean at all times, you, the big I, is constantly trying to communicate that this story is you.
Yeah.
Always. License plates, people, phone calls, meetings, trains, people you sit next to. It's always shouting at you. Most of us are doing the anti-Joseph Campbell recommendation, which is like, nope. But that's why I've gotten big into things. Originally, we were talking about like astrology and tarot and the I Ching, because they are divinatory oracles that will quickly reveal to you what you're putting out there and can get you very much quickly in tune with these deeper aspects of yourself. So then when you start to experience God, you develop a very intimate relationship. Right?
And then actually, I think the tools for like astrology, tarot, almost become obsolete once you have a deeper relationship with God, right? Like
they do.
Like in the Bible, it talks about warning signs about using all of that too much, because you almost become dependent on it.
That's exactly.
Rather than listening directly to the voice of God, whatever,
Which is you. That's what I always say. I use these things. So I constantly am shifting back and forth between unity consciousness and dualistic consciousness. Dualistic consciousness doesn't just incorporate the internal sense of I as Noah. Yeah. What a nebulous concept. It encompasses, encompasses any state of consciousness that's dualistic. So in Buddhist terms, in the 6 realms, that's anything from like the gods down to the hell beings, right? So any dualistic, conception of anything is a state that I can move through. But when you're moving through the unity states, it's very, very different. You move beyond concepts of right and wrong, good and evil, and you move out of the narrative of Eden and Adam and Eve, and you move into the big I am, which I again refer to, if we're talking about like the big unity consciousness, which we don't experience as individuals, it is this unconditioned I am. It's that when you're going in at night into that liminal boundary, it's the space around you that is allowing your desire and imaginal act to function in the thing. That's what I'm referring to. That's the Jod in the, Jehovah. It's this huge fucking orb of just awareness that, I think is all of us. And that's a very...
Yeah, awareness, I think.
Awareness. Yeah. That's what it is. It's unconditioned awareness. There's no conditions. Yeah. It's unconditioned.
Yeah.
And that is the ground or space in which we plant our desires, feel them, which you have communicated about as well as anyone I've heard, and then allow them to unfold. Yeah. That's prayer in my mind. Yeah. That's the definition.
Yeah. And there have been times, and like this is translated into all of my studio practice, right?
Yeah. Can we talk about your art?
Like in grad school, I was like, why am I so obsessed with superheroes? Right?
Oh God. Do you know why?
Because I'm like, I grew up with the concept of God being all powerful, all knowing, and I just really wanted to fly as a kid, right? Like, and then I began to question, like, philosophically, like, why do we all have this innate instinct, like, to be more than our bodies?
What do you think?
Because we have souls that are supernatural.
Right.
It's true. That's why we make fictions about it. Well, that's why we have Marvel Comics and DC Comics. Yeah.
Well,
That's why like they're the biggest. That's why right now, just look in popular media, superhero movies and like apocalyptic sci-fi narratives.
Yeah.
Those are like the two most popular things, and those are all biblical.
They're all biblical. And you probably don't know this, but the past couple of episodes I've been interpreting biblical scripture. So I just did the daughters of Zelophehad. Do you know that?
See, there's so much in the Bible. I don't even.
So I learned this.
I went to Bible school.
Yeah, and I didn't know shit about it, but I notice when things get thrust upon me, I can hear it, and so I'll research it. So this was brought up to me in the context of that God is a feminist, and I was getting this from a Hasidic person who a lot in their culture is not very free for women. So I found this very interesting. So the story is that there's this guy, Zelophehad, and he is on the Sabbath, and the Sabbath is this time you're not supposed to be doing anything, and he is like, I got to pick up these sticks. Literally, I got to pick up these sticks. And they're like, dude, don't do it. Like, don't pick up these sticks. It's it's a Sabbath. You're not supposed to do it. Right. He's like, nah, I'm going to do it. So he does it. And they're like, dude, like, we have to kill you now. You picked up these sticks, and the punishment for doing anything on the Sabbath is you're going to be killed. So he's killed. And he has 5 daughters, no sons. And they're just about to enter the promised land. And the daughters are like, what the fuck? Like, this is some bullshit. Yeah. Like, because they don't have any inheritance rights. They're going to be like, basically like just mendicants, like don't know what's going on. So they go to the priest, the rabbi. And the rabbi's like, this is beyond my pay grade. Like, I don't know how to do this. So eventually they get up to Moses. And Moses is like, okay, this is a big problem. I'm going to go to God. And so they go to God. He goes to God and he's like, God, what do we do? You know, this guy picked up sticks. They told him not to. He did. Now his daughters are in this bad position. And God goes, okay, you know what? Give them the land. They deserve the land. So this guy was saying God is a feminist. So I was batting around this story and I'm like, that's interesting. That's clearly the overt meaning of it. But what is it really going on? So then I started looking at stuff metaphorically and symbolically, and I'm like, oh, I think I fucking get this. And what it is Zelophehad, which translates to dark shadow in Hebrew, is the limited version of ourselves that carries around fear. It's the limited version of ourselves that believes that we don't have those superhero powers, that we don't have any real power or anything to do magic or anything. And we want to discover that. We want to go pick up those sticks and figure out maybe we do. Right. And everyone and ourselves in our heads, but everyone else is like, nah, don't do it. Don't dare to do that. This is how life is. This is how life works. Don't do it. And you go, I think I want to. I think I really want to do this. So you do it. And when you do it and you discover what picking up sticks really is, who you really are, you're killed. You're totally dead. But how do the daughters, this is how I figured out what this actually meant, is the daughters. What are the daughters? There's 5 of them. Whenever there's 5 in anything in the Bible, just immediately try to put in your 5 senses, because that almost always is what they're trying to tell you. So the daughters are like, hey, we want to go to the promised land too. Why can't we go to the promised land? The promised land is this free state of being that you can experience, and the senses want to experience too. It's all great if you experience it up here in your head, but if it's not in this world, that's kind of bullshit. So they go to
there was a physical place, right?
There was a physical
land.
That's what, right?
Jerusalem. Yeah.
Right.
Israel.
My interpretation is this is all Israel. This is all Zion. This is all Babylon. It's whatever we make it. But there's these 5 senses that want to experience this too, not just conceptually be like, that's great. That's great. God, all that. But they want to experience it in this world. So they go to Moses. Moses represents what you referred to, and we're talking about with the tongues, the feeling aspects that goes to unconditioned awareness, God, the feeling, and it says, hello, like, can these senses get some fuck? They didn't do anything. Like, can we just let it happen? And God goes, you know what? Absolutely. Boom. Right. Feeling goes back, tells the senses, you got it. Senses go, great. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Our prayers are answered. They enter the promised land.
Right.
Almost everything in the Bible or the Dhammapada or any of this stuff can be looked at through the lens of I say the ends, there's a Freudian slip, the lens of the end, and it always conforms to how this reality is created. Yeah. And art in particular and media is constantly reflecting back the collective unconscious and state of consciousness, which is it's no surprise to me
100%.
that you've been noticing the superhero and apocalyptic. And
Yeah.
the apocalyptic, just to be clear, my conception of it is people may think it's ecological disaster. People may think it's our society going to hell in a handbasket. But what it really is, it's a collective psychic death that is imminent.
Yeah.
Like the way we look at reality is about to change completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe, for some reason, I've always said this, and I don't know where it's come from. I used to like kind of speak. I used to kind of like preach a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. And it was like always like I would always say this, and I don't know what it's rooted, but like it has to get worse before it gets better. For some reason,
we have to purge.
There is something that's gonna like, and like that's kind of how I interpret like my favorite book ever, like the Book of Revelation, which because it's the weirdest thing ever when you read it.
What's your favorite quote from the Book of?
Well, I don't know if I have like a favorite quote, but I remember like these like creatures that are like, I picture them so vividly in my mind. They have eyes all over their bodies and like crazy wings, and they're described. And their whole goal is to sit in the throne room with God and like say "Holy, holy, holy" all day.
Cool.
Like their entire job is to like from every angle behold glory.
Cool.
Isn't
What a
that
metaphor.
tight?
That's really cool.
And that's all that's their like job.
We're
job.
those beings, I believe.
What?
I think everything I look at, again, I look at literally every
Yeah.
character and figure in the Bible as us.
Yeah.
So the God is the unconditioned awareness, and the beings with the eyes everywhere is
Yeah.
the fragmented consciousness,
Right.
you, me,
Right.
constantly looking and reflecting back saying, holy, holy shit,
Yeah.
holy shit, holy
Yeah.
shit, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ.
But why I bring up Revelation too is that that's where the apocalyptic imagery is. Like this guy, one of Jesus's disciples, John, is sitting on an island called Patmos, and he gets a vision, and right, and like it's this whole epic story of this vision of like the plagues and the world ending and like the saved, but then like all of the theologians get all technical about it too, like the pre-trib, post-trib. Are you like it gets weird, but like I like to look at it like a larger picture.
Yeah, the panorama
of it, which like in every biblical text or not or any like religious text, for instance, I feel like there is some sort of apocalypse that would like happen in some way.
Because to me, it refers to the apocalyptic state of limited consciousness dying.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, there is something interesting about that. Like, I don't know if it like maybe everything's leading towards somewhat ultimate renewal.
Yeah,
of some sort.
You die.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, as crazy as this sounds, I've died probably 100 times in the past 4 months. And I don't mean like, it's like I've been slitting my throat or anything, but like go look up a picture of Kali. Mm-hmm. Go think about a part of yourself that you want to be destroyed and obliterated and let it go.
Yeah.
And then feel like a different person and see the difference in your life. Yeah. That's killing yourself.
Yeah. It's like a continuous like renewal or like rebirth.
That's what it is.
And that's why I want to work in the prison. That's why
it's because you can teach. You can.
There's sort of like, I think prison itself should be rehabilitation, a center for rebirth, not condemnation.
Forever. Well, I have this thing I also lifted from Neville Goddard, which is a very heady metaphysical principle, but one I firmly believe in and changed my relationship to external reality, which is whatever you condemn, you eventually become. Mm-hmm. That sounds so stupidly wrong if you look at it through the objective lens.
That's true, because you're putting all your mind into it.
That's
you're
right.
Thinking about it all the time.
In the same token, when you contemplate an ideal, you become it by falling in love with it. It's the exact same principle at play. And if you want to break a spell of condemnation and hatred and a system that is just built on that, you have to resist the urge to condemn it and have to figure out what you can inject in the situation to alchemically turn it into the thing you want to see, which is exactly what you need to do. You go right into the prisons. Mm-hmm. You start it with the people in there. You let them get the power to understand how this shit works. You let them change it from the inside out. And then all of a sudden, all these people with the money on the outside who think they're going to change everything, they just have to be the vessels for allowing it to come out.
Exactly.
Good plan, Maggie.
Yeah.
Good plan.
That's my strategy. And
I get
you're
it.
so in tune. You get it.
I totally fucking get it. Trust me, I'm telling you.
Don't give away my strategy. Come on. Now they all know.
What is it? Barnabas the thief?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Is Barabbas? Barabbas the thief?
Free Barabbas or free Jesus?
Yes. Barabbas is the limited version of yourself. You need to open the cages, let it run out.
Yeah.
Jesus is the awakened version of everything, and that is a good thing.
Yeah.
to hold on to.
And as you were talking, I wanted to loop back to one thing. I remember being you talked about Moses, and then the Old Testament versus the New Testament Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Which is like there was an anointed prophet, and God only spoke to one prophet, like Moses, and then delivered the messages to everybody else. So the one's feeling center, I guess you would call it, of like a community.
Yes.
But in the New Testament, when Jesus died and came back, was like the releasing of the Holy Spirit to everyone.
It's a consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So both of them point to the same psychological realization, again, that the I am and the sense of I am is the real God. The beauty of the New Testament is that the personification of Jesus is also useful as an overt tool, but symbolically literally taps into the real truth of every mystic tradition, which is everyone can do this. This is accessible to everyone at all times. There are no limitations, no matter what is going on. That is a fact of everything. And this is in every single tradition. There is some representative, whether it's a guru or a deity.
Yeah.
And that's really important because you don't want to, the mediation that happened with the priest class over the last 2,000 years was, people will call it a travesty. I would say it's part of an unfolding plan that maybe led to undue suffering, of course, but that needs to be dispelled pretty heavily. Like I keep referring to it as the age of the guru is dying. It's going to be dead in 3 months, as best as I can tell. And what that means is you're your own guru. You teach yourself this. You can get a little tip from someone who maybe learned some things. You can hear someone on a podcast talk about God and get some ideas, but this is always a ladder and a mountain you scale by yourself. And the reason you do it is not because it's like some fucked up trick or hard thing because if it wasn't like that, you would never believe it fully. There'd always be this little piece of doubt. Like, I don't know, like maybe it wasn't, like maybe that's not true. And you want to eliminate that because then you can live from that state of constantly be praying. Like that's the point. Right. Because then think of how effective you are as a healer.
The people in the watchtower, there was like this analogy in the Bible where it's about like the watchers, like where there's multiple prophetic voices who are set on the watchtower to watch because Jesus apparently is supposed to come back on the white horse, right?
Oh, he back.
And that's I guess what you're referring to is another collective consciousness shift. And the Bible breaks it up into, and we actually do it, on our own timescales, BC 8, AD, before Christ, after death.
But they tried to change that in the age of scientific materials
they did.
To BCE.
But that's, BCE, right? But like the classification was, there was a huge collective shift. And that was the Holy Spirit being released to everyone in the second shift, and then potentially seeing a third shift on the horizon. And then there are people with the collective prophetic voices who are sitting around on a podcast talking about what might come. But why do we talk about what might come? Preparation.
Well, that's where
and like trying to awaken others.
Okay, so here's the thing, and this
what's the purpose of the prophet now?
The prophet, again, and I'll say this, like, we talk about these things. I very much subscribe to the archetype of Milarepa, who's a Tibetan yogi who basically distilled all of the Tibetan realizations and wisdoms of the Buddhahood and the Enlightenment and being awake into song form and transmitted them way more efficiently and effectively because they were in song form. So people were like, yo, like, I like this song. And then they're like, what's he saying? And it's like, oh, cool. So I've very much identified with that. And I think one of the things about messianic complexes, as people would refer to them as, is a tripping point. If you have something beautiful to share with people and it's good and it's going to help them, you do that. Just go ahead and do that. And this preparedness you're talking about to me resonates that we have a period of time here where I really feel over the next few months where resetting our karmic balance is. I really feel like we need a zero slate. Some of us have excess. Some of us have too much, negative and too much positive. We want to get to zero because these states you're talking to, the place where you move through, you can't carry this baggage with you. And I don't think people are going to die and leave our reality, but I do believe it will be like we are literally living in different worlds and it's just like you can't interface in the same way that you used to be able to, because I do think like a lot of this stuff is going to be essentially looking like magic to people. And it is magic in a lot of ways, but it's also just how things actually work.
Yeah.
Have you ever done tarot?
Once or twice. Sometimes it's like, I'm like, oh, one time I got that really bad card.
There's no such thing.
I know.
Everything's neutral. The truth is that the cards are you. Here, shuffle these while I'm explaining what tarot is. Oh, Gabriel. That's my son. So basically that's on the judgment card. I got that today and my friend just gives me these readings. Shuffle however your heart feels you should. So the tarot cards are just you. Everything is you. That's essentially how I operate in the world. A tarot reader, their job is to get the fuck out of the way and potentially give you some signs and interpret some alchemical symbols that may go overlooked by your conscious mind. So you learn the cards and begin to reveal that. What that means is if you pull like a negative looking cards, like the 10 of Swords, where like someone stabbed all over the place. I got it the other day. Here's the thing. If you look at that in a position, let's say it's in the upright position and you ask a question like past, present, future, and it's in the future and you're stabbed, rather than looking at like this is going to be a painful, horrible time, which is what typically the card indicates in a lot of readings, is look at it like the part of you that really needs to die. Is going to die. So
will.
And maybe it's a little painful.
And like it's personal. Sometimes like some people can like experience a death and they're willing to be like, okay, here we go. I give it up. But like for me, it's always a little bit like
cut it once.
There's a bit of a tension,
Okay. Oh. Here, just cut it once. Yeah. Here, give me that. Yeah. Okay.
I'm like
all right.
I'm always like sometimes the dying for me is like pretty dramatic.
Well, dying is a tough thing if you don't understand what dying
or what you need to let go.
Like,
and sometimes letting go of a pain actually like
is a death.
Is familiar to you. It's like actually letting go of something that's familiar to you.
That's why it feels like dying.
Yeah.
And that's what this is like in a lot of ways, this life. All right, here we go. We're doing tarot. First one I've done on air, but we're right here. So let's do it. First card, the Knight of Pentacles. So the Knight of Pentacles, I didn't ask you what you wanted this to represent, just because we're going to do it how I do it for people who don't ask that. So like I do these now professionally, started doing it in 2 weeks because it's fucking fun now. And it's helping people, but we're going to interpret this kind of psychologically for you. So the Knight of Pentacles, we're going to pull 3 cards and then we're going to interpret them. Then you have the 5 of Pentacles, and we'll go over what is on each card. And then you have the Knight of Wands in the reverse position. Okay. So the Knight of Pentacles shows a knight on a black horse, a dark horse. Ooh. It's like the Katy Perry song, Dark Horse. He's holding a pentacle. In the distance, there's hills, there's 2 trees. He's looking forward calmly and preparedly. So there are 4 suits in the tarot. There's pentacles, swords, cups, and wands. Pentacles typically have to do with wealth. A lot of people think of financial wealth because when they hear the word wealth, they think of finances, but it can also do with spiritual, emotional, psychological wealth. That's how it should be thought of too. Also financial. A lot of knight cards they're different, right? We have the Knight of Wands and the other one. We'll see the difference and we'll compare them. But, you can see a knight lunging forward quickly and, voraciously like the Knight of Swords. Or you can see the dark horse of this knight holding a pentacle in his right hand, kind of calmly waiting and planning action. So this is a card that indicates preparedness, taking time, maybe coming kind of from the outside, like the dark horse, but still taking the time to like make sure you're doing everything right. The next card, and I'm going to read each card and then we'll put them together for you. The next card is the Five of Pentacles. We see two people, a man and a woman, outside of a church with the, what do they call those windows?
Stained glass windows.
Stained glass, there's the word. Stained glass windows. Outside, a man is on crutches, injured his leg, it looks like. They're barefoot. They're not doing well. So this is what, again, people would refer to as a negative card. It doesn't look good. It can just mean a state of spiritual poverty. It can mean a state of actual financial hardship. It can mean any disconnection from a state that one would like to desire. Then we have the Knight of Wands in the reverse position. So we're going to read the card upright. Again, this is highlighting what I was talking about, which is this horse is lunging forward, front hooves in the air. The knight actually doesn't look super into it. He's kind of like, like cool, but like what's going on? Like if you look at his face, it's like, just like, hey, like, like I'm with this because I'm on this horse, but like, let me make sure. And we can see the yellow cloak has these lizards. They're cool, not like lizards. Full Ouroboros, but like they're pretty close, representing infinity.
What's on that club it has?
The club?
Oh, that's
so
a
that's
wand.
The wand.
It's kind of hairy. It's like a hairy wand.
Yeah, it kind of looks like this thing I've built in a weird way, except no stems on it. So we can see the flowing like hair attached to the armor. And the yellow tunic on top.
Some pyramids
and
back
the
there.
Pyramids in back. And you'll see on a lot of the Knights cards, they have this arid kind of barren land. And in this one, we see the pyramids representing triangles. We got the Hilma off Clint up there too. Hilma. So we have it in the reverse position. So let's interpret all these. Okay, let's talk specifically about this card. So again, reversed, we're getting another indicator that maybe we want to just take another look at how quickly we're charging ahead with anything. So together, what these cards represent to me, if I'm looking at them quickly for an interpretation of what's going on with you, is you're aware of how taking the time to plan something can lead to very powerful results and eventually victory and success in anything that you do. You know that when you don't do that and rush into situations, you're probably looking at not necessarily disaster, but a state of uncomfort.
Yeah.
A state of, maybe I should not have done this. And again, like people could look at this and say, hey, well, it's always a good idea to prepare and take your time. That's not true for some people. Some people are like incredibly effective, which is going with their gut reaction, going right ahead and it always working out. So I want to be clear that this isn't true for everyone. And then again, we have the last card, the Knight of Wands reverse. Again, saying that if you don't take the time to really like achieve or plan out your achievements and goals, I would say specifically related to the spiritual realm, you astutely pointed out the pyramids, the 3 pyramids, it's not going to be as effective if you want it. It's not going to be like disastrous like this middle 5 of Pentacles card, but it's something that's reinforcing the theme that like when you're approaching anything, whether it's consciousness, career, relationship, love, any of these things, you have the tools. This Knight of Pentacles really indicates this. You have that inner sense of knowing as the beacon, the pentacle he's holding there, the key to the wealth of everything. Use that as your beacon all of the time, and you can literally do whatever you want in life. So that's what these cards say to me.
And I think it totally captures sort of a little bit of how I operate.
Yeah, there's longer ones like the Celtic Cross that are more specific, but I think at all times, even if the conscious mind doesn't fully get it, there's a deep level of our being that is just like, oh, fuck. Like, are you revealing, or why are you telling the person what's really going on? Because it is like, again, like the fear we were speaking about.
Right.
It's a protective fear. It's not like a dick fear. It's not like something that's meant to be hurtful, even though it can result in
and pain. Like there's a conscious center like in our brain that's like about fear. Like I watched the
amygdala.
The amygdala. And I watched that documentary that just won the Academy Award. Free Solo.
I didn't see it.
The guy, they did
base jumping.
No, he climbs. He climbed El Capitan without ropes.
Right.
And like he has his amygdala is like suppressed or something, right? Like
So he just
his
doesn't
fear
feel it.
center.
He's just like, I'm going to do it. And he does it.
Yeah. But there's like consequences. So I feel like fear is like, it's physical, but it's also like, it's like physiological, but it's also conscious as well.
You have to be prepared to be a fearless person.
Yeah.
If you're fearless and not carrying around an ethical framework, like you've exponentially increased your chances for misery, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just how it works. All right, Maggie, we're going to end here. We could talk about this stuff forever, but I'm also going to be a bard soon, so we can weave in not exactly the God stuff and more podcasts.
Yeah, we're excited to have you speak at our class just about podcasts in general.
Yeah, it's fun. Podcasts are good. They're like, pirate radio for the 21st century right now.
Definitely.
So I end with 3 questions and then an open-ended one. They seem silly sometimes, but they're so not. What's your favorite color?
Blue just popped into my mind.
That's a good one. Is that your favorite color? Blue counts?
It was the first thing that came into my head.
What's your favorite number?
7.
That's a good number too. What's your favorite animal?
My dog.
King Charles Cavalier, right?
Yes, Shane.
Shane. Peace? What does Shane mean? It means peace,
I don't remember, actually.
I think it's something like peace.
Wow.
Something like that. Maybe
if it does, then wow.
I
picked it because the hot girl in the L Word, her name is Shane.
That's a really good reason.
But if it means peace, maybe there's like a deeper prophetic meaning I didn't know
I also
about.
could just be making that up. That's also possible. Last question. What's a practical tip that's helped you in your life that you could share with people listening?
A practical tip?
Yeah, could be anything.
Huh.
Practical.
Well, if you want to have soft skin, you should wash it with a light soap every day.
Well, I need
twice a day.
What's a light soap?
Like a soap that doesn't have any like chemicals like bad chemicals in it. I don't know. My Nana told me I also should be washing my neck as well because that skin is also the same type of skin that's on your face.
Oh, so soft soap twice a day?
Yeah.
All right. That is a really good practical tip.
Yeah, just wash your face.
That's like a really good practical tip.
Yeah, you get so much junk on there.
And if you take it metaphorically, it's even better.
Uh-huh.
So I love
Cleansing.
it. Maggie, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to that episode. If you liked it, she does have a website, maggiehazen.com. Go check her stuff out. She's someone you want to catch in person, though. She's really cool. Thank you for listening to this episode. Rate and review the podcast. That's a nice thing to do. There's a mailing list for Synchronicity. There's going to be some cooler stuff coming out there in the next few days, next few weeks, something like that. Stay tuned. Tarot readings are open. I am incorporating astrological concepts into these readings now as it is revealed to me, as I understand it more, and as I feel confident in speaking about it. So you can look for that. So if you do sign up for a tarot reading, expect some astrological stuff embedded in there. We'll be moving into the Kabbalistic stuff at some point, but come on, one thing at a time, guys. You can go find all of that stuff at syncpodcast.com/tarot. And that's it, right? The free drawing too. Follow me on Instagram, send me a message, say I'd like to be entered in the contest to win a free tarot. I will write your name down, I will do a random thing, and I will pick someone, and eventually you'll get one. If not, sign up, all good. That's it. Happy imagining. Oh, one last thing. A lot more questions have come in. There will be a Q&A, if not next week, then the week after, related to imaginal acts. Also, success stories. I hope you guys don't think I'm not sharing them because none have happened. I can assure you that is not the case. I am loading up. I'm basically aggregating all of the really fucking crazy ones into one spot, and that's going to be the episode. I'm expecting it to be around November because that's when I'm going to go visit my friend Jill. I'm staying with her in LA and her lovely husband, and we're basically like, there's some cool shit going on. So stay tuned for success stories. It is real. It is real to the degree that you believe it's real. That's all I can say. Sounds crazy, sounds silly, sounds like it shouldn't work, But this is how imagining works. Until then, happy imagining. I will see you soon.